What up, reader fam? Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about 10 books that I want to read before the end of the year. Will I stick to that TBR? Only time will tell. I am a mood reader, which heavily affects my reading. We've got nearly 3 months left in the year, which means 3 months of rushing to finish our reading goals. Except not for me, because I have accepted the fact that I will not reach 100 books like I thought I would this year. But that's okay. I've accepted it. I've accepted failure. I'm honestly used to failing, so it's fine. I've accepted my fate and I'm just going to move on with my life and just read. Just freaking read. Let me know down below in the comments the books that you were hoping to get to before the end of the year. I'd love to hear from you guys. Today's video is being sponsored by DK Publishing, and without further ado, let's get started talking about the books that I want to read before the end of 2021. First up on my list is Allies. This book was published and released recently by DK Publishing. It has a plethora of authors who have contributed to it. It's essentially a book about being an ally, what it takes to be one, and how you can continue to grow in that department of your life. It talks about learning to be one, how to continue to put in the effort, and realizing that more times than not, you will mess up. In fact, one of the quotes on the back of the book I really love. It says, "Being a good ally without making mistakes is like eating popcorn without dropping any on the floor. It's possible, but let's be honest, it rarely happens." That's literally such a good example. 17 authors have come together to contribute to this book, sharing their own stories and insights through a range of essays on being an ally, needing an ally, and showing up for not only the people in your life, but also strangers. I think it's always a great idea to take a step back and reflect on yourself. Think about the ways in which you are affecting people on the daily and how your actions affect people. And this is definitely going to be a read that makes me take a step back and reflect on myself and think about a lot of areas in my life that I need to work on. Not only is this a beautifully designed book with graphic elements throughout it and illustrations every now and then, but it's also a very interactive book in the fact that it gives us reflection prompts, journal ideas, and recommended reads. Because it takes more than reading this book than to become an ally. It takes action, and it also takes more listening, more learning, and lots of reading. Also, a portion of the proceeds for this book ends up going to charity, which I think is really neat. This book is in stores now if you want to check it out, and hopefully I will be reading it before the end of 2021. That is the goal. Next on my list, I have Slay. This story follows our main character Kira, who has created this online role-playing card game for black gamers called Slay. But things go wrong when somebody is murdered due to a dispute within the game of Slay. This causes a slew of horrific media coverage calling the game racist. Kira must protect herself, but also stand up for this game that she has created. I just read The Cost of Knowing by the same author. This book right here, and I was flabbergasted by how great it was. I was very impressed by this book, and it made me realize that I needed to pick up Slay right away. I need to get to this one before I regret it, because I regretted putting this one off. So we're not gonna put off Slay like I put off The Cost of Knowing. Ain't happening. We're gonna get right to it. I love when books work in some kind of gaming element, so I'm really looking forward to seeing that aspect within the story. Speaking of gaming, the next book on my list is Wildcard by Marie Lu. This is the second book in the Warcross duology. This is essentially about a virtual reality world full of millions of gamers, and we follow one hacker who ends up hacking herself into a championship game, and through this becomes an overnight sensation. Convinced that she'll be banned from the game, she actually ends up working hand in hand with the CEO of the game. But as it turns out, Warcross is not all that it seems to be. Here's the deal, the 411. Warcross was good, but not great. I was a bit let down by that one, not gonna lie. Here I am admitting that. Yes, I have confessed. But at the same time, it was so freaking fun. I flew through the book so fast, and it was entertaining through and through. And I know it's partly because of Marie Lu's writing style. She's got that style that just pulls you in and holds your attention through the whole book. Like, you just blink, and the next thing you know, you're at the end of the book, and you're like, how did I get here? Did I really read this book, or was I hypnotized? That is the question. I don't know how she does it, but I need to drink some of that writer juice so that I can write like that. Amazing pacing, fun world, entertaining. I'm going into Wildcard, though, with really low expectations, so that maybe I'm wowed, I'm blown away, an earthquake comes through and shakes me up. Hopefully by doing that, I will enjoy it more than I enjoyed Warcross. Next up on my list is You've Reached Sam. This book comes out in November, and I was lucky enough to get an arc. In this book, we follow Julie, who has her future completely set out for her. She's made big plans with her boyfriend Sam, but that all changes when he dies. Yikes. Filled with complete grief, one day she calls him just to hear his voice on his voicemail, but when she calls him, Sam picks up. There's just something about this book that I know is just going to completely destroy me. It's just got something about it that I know is going to come and just knock on the door of my emotions, and my emotions are going to open the door and erupt. That's what's going to happen. That's what's going to go down. I know it. That's where I see my future with this book. In a pool of emotions, sadness, tears, feelings, all of it. Why do we do these things to ourselves though? Like, we know a book is going to destroy us and we're like, yeah, I love that. Come into my life and just wreck it. Let's do it. Like, why are we like this? Why? Somebody explain it to me, please. Next on my list, I have Other Life. This is the final book in the last reality Reality trilogy, which now that I think about it, I must have a thing for books that have video games in them because I'm gonna be reading 3 before the end of the year. Anyway, this takes place in a world where you can leave your body behind for this virtual reality world. Our main character Simon has realized that this virtual reality world, Otherworld, is probably a trap. That's typically how these video game stories go. So he must do everything he can to protect the livelihood of not only his best friend, but also everybody who is in the game Otherworld. This series has been really fun so far, but something that does concern me is the fact that this third and final book is so slim. Like, does anybody else get really nervous when the last book in a series is like itsy bitsy tiny? I'm just like, huh? You're gonna wrap it up in that small amount? Are you kidding me? That just always concerns me. I mostly kind of want to read this just to get the serotonin of finishing another trilogy. It's short and sweet and I could probably knock it out in a day, but I also kind of want to read it soon just so that I don't forget what happens in books 1 and 2 before I get to it, because otherwise I will have to reread books 1 and books 2 before I read this, and like, I just don't want to do that. I'd rather read this while those 2 books are still fresh in my mind. Next on my list, I have American Street. This is a story of a girl whose family is immigrating from Haiti to America, but her mother ends up being detained, leaving our main character to live alone in America with her American cousins who are obnoxious. We follow her as she tackles life living in America on her own without her mother. Yes, I am still on my contemporary kick, and what about it? I don't want no judgments in the comments. I almost feel like I just want to like binge all my unread contemporaries before the end of the year. That way I can just like focus on fantasy and other books in the new year, but I don't know. I don't know if that's gonna happen. I read a story by this author in the Meet Cute anthology, this book right here, and it left a solid impression on me, solid enough for me to want to pick up one of her books, one of her full-fledged stories. So that's what I'm gonna do. I feel like this book is going to be a very emotional journey and that our main character is going to go through it, but I'm really looking forward to getting to this one and seeing how our main character is able to overcome these hardships that she's facing. Next up, I have the Anthropocene reviewed. These are essays adapted from John Green's podcast, where he talks about different facets of our human-centered planet. This is the Booksplosion Book of the Month for the month of September, so of course I gotta read it. In fact, I gotta read it soon, like this week, because our live show is October 3rd. Oops, I gotta get on that. It's partly the only reason that I want to read it is because of Booksplosion, but then I posted my haul and so many of you guys were like, that book is so freaking good, you're gonna love it, read it ASAP, and so now I'm like really intrigued. Like, am I gonna love this book? Is it gonna become a new favorite? We will see. John Green has been a bit of a miss for me lately, and by lately I mean with Turtles All the Way Down, I just didn't love that book. I'm not giving up on John Green just yet. In fact, I probably will read every book he ever releases just because I'm trash, but hopefully I end up loving this one, and if not, then that will suck. Next on my list, I have Defy the Night. It's just one of those titles that I have to say dramatically every time. Defy the night, defy the night, defy the night. I'll stop, I promise. In this book, we follow a kingdom divided by corruption, an outbreak of an illness that can be cured by an incredibly hard-to-find potion called Moonflower, and a girl's journey to help heal her community. I have been craving some kind of fun YA fantasy. Yes, fantasy. I've been craving a fantasy. I know I'm still on my contemporary kick, but every now and then I'm like, ooh, a fantasy would be really good right now. I would love to eat a fantasy. Is anybody serving a fantasy right now? Bridget Kimmerer is, and I'm gonna give in to Bridget Kimmerer and read this book. I feel like this is just gonna be a good one to sink into. I loved A Curse So Dark and Lonely, and I just have high hopes for this one. I feel like it's gonna have a solid writing style, rich world building, and a super fun and exciting plot. Should I bring my expectations down? Probably, but the expectations are up there. I just can't help it. Next up here, I have 56 Days. This is a thriller that takes place during COVID-19. This couple who hasn't really known each other for that long end up moving in together during the lockdown period, and by the end of lockdown, one of them ends up dead. I don't read thrillers often. In fact, I couldn't even tell you the last one I read, but this one just piqued my interest. I have felt kind of like iffy about books coming out about COVID-19 because honestly, triggering content, I don't want to think about that time. I mean, I know that we're still kind of going through it. We're still not through it yet. We're still going through it, but it's a little bit better, Anyway, don't want to talk about it. Even though it's kind of triggering, there's just something about this that I am just so intrigued by. I need to know how this all goes down. My interest levels just like went through the roof when I first heard about this book. I was like, I need to read this ASAP. So it's gonna happen. It's gonna go down. Even though I don't read thrillers that often, I've been wanting to read more and kind of get more into that genre because I feel like I just haven't really explored it that much, honestly. So it's time. Gonna check this one out, see how I feel about it. I will say that I feel like because I'm not well read in the thriller genre, this one could knock it out the park for me. But I don't know how it would be if you were like well versed in the world of thrillers. So if you are well versed in the world of thrillers and you have read this, let me know your thoughts on it down below in the comments. Last book on my list, I have Asleep. This weaves together 3 different perspectives with the top topic of sleep at the forefront. A girl mourning her lost lover finds herself sleepwalking in the night. Then a girl who finds herself in a relationship with a man whose wife is in a coma. She ends up not being able to stay awake that often. And then the third girl whose dreams are haunted by this girl who she used to be in a love triangle with. This just sounds so interesting to me. I read Moshi Moshi by this same author this year, and I loved Moshi Moshi, like, oh my gosh, so good. Good enough that it made me want to pick up more of her books to read, so that's what I'm gonna do. She is a Japanese author, so this is translated, and I've also been wanting to read more translated works, so I've been majorly lacking in that area. It's okay. We're doing our best. That's all I can ask of myself. Alright, so those are the 10 books that I'm hoping to read before the end of 2021. Obviously, I would love to read more than just these 10 books before the end of the year, but also it would be okay if this is all that I read before the end of the year. Again, I want to hear from you guys down below in the comments. Let me know down below in the comments some of the books that you were hoping to get to before the end of 2021. What's the book that's like on the top of your TBR? Let me know down below in the comments. Again, thank you to DK Publishing for sponsoring this video. Allies is in stores now. Be sure to check it out. If you guys like this video, be sure to go and hit that like button. If you want to see more bookish content from me, be sure to go and hit subscribe or go and hit that bell icon and you'll be notified every time I post new videos. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope your day is bright, that tomorrow is brighter. Keep reading what your heart desires, and I will see you soon with a new video. Bye, yo! And thumbnail time! We gotta thumbnail it up, we gotta thumbnail it up, we gotta thumbnail it up. This is a... Woo!